Well, two of my guests are here, so let's get straight into the meat of what we're going to discuss tonight. So,
we
live in enormously uncertain times. Here in the UK, lockdowns and releases are a game of roulette. Promises by the government to relax our lockdown arrangements can be upset by the simple appearance of what they call a new variant of COVID-19. Add to that the fact that in the UK, 39 million people have had at least one dose of the vax, with the age threshold for inoculation daily dropping. Now we're offering inoculation to the under 30s, and there is already discussion of extending this to children under 16. What is more, there's the ever-growing threat, as I call it, of a potentially divisive vaccine passport that'll give greater freedoms of work, travel, and movement to some. I have just learned, literally before coming on air, that the government has walked back its plans on this. So it's as you were on that score. Well, that makes my point about uncertainty. A demonstration which congested 12 miles of London streets took place on the 29th of May, which was last Saturday. It was aimed at pushing back against vaccine passports and the inoculation of the young. All the while, promises of further liberty are held as a carrot, it seems, to encourage people to comply with government instructions. The anxiety and fear caused by uncertainties round our individual vulnerability to the virus, exacerbated by ever-increasing censorship on social media and the mainstream media, is traumatizing people, vaccinated or not. So tonight, I'm asking my posse in the studio, how do we maintain our spirits against this onslaught of uncertainty? The people I call the posse are old friends of this platform. Ben Bracco, economist and iconic musician, broadcast journalist and analyst Priscilla Mwippo, and the widely popular hostess of Kiki's Chat, broadcaster Candy Kisei. So, hello to the two of you. Priscilla is apparently en route, people to see, places to go, etc., etc. No rest for any of you superstars. I can see that. So, Ben, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for asking.
That's excellent. You're coming all the way from where today?
From Ohio, a place called Lima in Ohio.
Terrific. And it just goes to show he was the first in the studio. He had, some of my other guests had 5 miles to come. He had over 5,000 miles to come. Ben, thank you so much for making the time. The lovely Candy Kisei. Candy, how are you? Can I hear you? Candy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, that's lovely. How are you?
I'm fine. I was in an international women's discussion, about children being missing. It's a big thing at the moment. So,
Fantastic.
And it's our children, so that's why I'm a little bit, I wasn't late. I was here dead on time.
You were absolutely on the button. That's what I say. You people have got places to go, people to see. So it's a pleasure to even find the time to get you into the studio. So this is it. Priscilla is also en route right now. So this is it. I mean, the question is, these are uncertain. Ben, do you find that is it fair to say that these are uncertain times? Is there a lot of, do you guys feel safe, secure, and certain about your future plans in the States?
No, that's an understatement. I mean, everything is up in the air. Nobody knows how things are going to pan out in the near future. Not even talking about medium term and long term. So it's difficult to plan. It's difficult to get your head around things. A lot of businesses are out of sync, and people are losing money. And also there's a lot of strange messaging that is causing people great anxiety. So
what do you mean by, can I ask what you mean by strange messaging?
Well, what I mean by strange messaging is that there's a lot of inconsistency, and it seems that a lot of the experts are making things up. They are also pissing in the dark like most of the public, and they're making things up as they go along, because nobody really has a handle on this COVID thing, so they just try to keep up, but you can see that they keep changing their minds about things here and there, and also there's bad politics involved, which is causing a lot of confusion.
More of that to come. Candy, I mean, Ben is saying that in Ohio, in the United States of America, it looks like the narrative is being made up as we go along. What's your view on around the matter of certainty here in the UK? Candy?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit different in the sense that in America, they opened up quite early and they were doing normal things. My friends were going to hairdressers and having their nails done, etc., which was a bit disconcerting to me because we have had a series of lockdowns with a break in between. And then, and even then, we haven't actually opened properly. At the moment, we're in discussions about whether we should open in June, or if we should wait and let the people be vaccinated because we're afraid of the Indian variant. So there are issues there. All of this is disconcerting. Now, as Ben said, though, across the world, there are inconsistencies, and it always looks like the superpowers, which is America, Europe, and UK, and I put UK on the side because we're now in Brexit, we are always looking for someone else to blame, or we're always looking or pinpointing that the problem is coming from elsewhere. Today in the news, it was said that some scientists have found that the COVID-19 hasn't got ancestors, which means that they cannot trace it back to anything. They can't trace it back to an animal or, there's no trace. So this must have been created in a lab. So all of this continually, you're telling us it's monkeys, it's rats, it's mice, it's animals, it's countries, it's anything but the people with the labs. And so I agree with Ben when he says they're making the cases as they go along. In some governments, they're blaming the ministers, they're blaming the prime ministers. Everybody is somewhere in the melee. No inconsistency, and it is understandable at some point when you say that this is a pandemic that has occurred and it needs to be dealt with. However, how is it being dealt with? Everyone has their own method, and that is not clear.
Thank you, Candy. That beautifully put. Very clear, especially about this business about the origins of the COVID-19. Now, I'm going to go now to Priscilla. You have fantastic hands. Good. That was a wonderful close-up of your right hand. Thank you so much. How are you?
I am fine. Let me say good evening, good evening. My sincerest apologies for being so late. I went to see my folks. Took me a minute to get away from them. Uncle Ben, it's nice to see you. It's been a minute. Candy.
Yes.
Isn't it a small world? Okay.
It's a tiny world.
I mean, they've just been giving me their take, Priscilla, on the issue around certainty. How do you read the issue around certainties in the United Kingdom?
You mean certainties with regards
How
to?
secure do people feel? I mean, the stop go up, down, and so on.
I think people are extremely insecure. I think that the mixed messaging that we get from the government on a daily basis has created a lot of anxiety, I think, for a section of our population here in the UK. I also think that we're very uncertain as to what's going to happen next. We've had a great bank holiday weather that we've not seen during the spring and into our summer months. It's been quite poor, and it's been a glorious weekend by all accounts. The question is, will this last? And I think currently our weather is quite literally the reflection of our society, which is that the weather we've been experiencing 4 different weathers in a day. We could wake up and it's an autumn morning, and we have a spring afternoon. By spring mid-morning, by afternoon, it could be it could be full-on winter, and then by the evening it sort of goes down with summer. We start to see the sun. So and it's like that, whether it's with our messaging, whether it's with the way that we're currently conducting ourselves, and I think it's quite unfair. I think the level of anxiety, the level of uncertainty, the level of fear and concern is still very, very high for a section of the population.
Okay. You say a section of the population. Which section of the population do you think feels secure about what's going on?
I think the only people that probably are feeling not that they're secure, but I think they may have a certain level of maybe confidence, or they may fare a bit better. I would say are probably the folks that were out, protesting at the weekend.
Right.
The folks that have come to the point where they are saying, this is enough now. We need to end this.
Very interesting.
We can't pretend or deny that they don't exist. They've been making their point week after week, coming out to protest, although the vast majority of the country are not aware because you won't see it on the mainstream media. But I think that group of people, those people there who are fighting the fight, as it were, I think they're probably the ones who are faring better than most.
It's really interesting that. Priscilla, thanks so much. Look, I got to ask you all now, kind of in a group chat, what does everybody think that the censorship which we've experienced, and Priscilla just referred to it now, the censorship which we've experienced, what has it done to people's spirits? If I go from the top with Ben.
Well, I think that there are 2 ways of looking at it. If you look at the pros, I think that it's helping a bit in controlling extreme cases of conspiracy theories that exacerbate the panic. Okay, and then on the other side, it mitigates against clear messaging, causing people to feel they're not being fed the truth. So it's all up in the air, really.
Okay, Candy, what do you think, Candy, that the censorship has done to people?
I think the censorship has confused people, and it's put people in 2 different camps, just as Ben said. And so there are the ones who are very resolute and are following the government's guidelines in all things without thinking. They are not thinking for themselves, and they are just going with the flow, believing everything that's going on. And there's another group that is questioning, and that group is being labeled by the followers as the conspiracy theorists. I think that in all of this, everything is up in the air, but there is a majority that is more believing or wanting to toe the line, and then there is the minority that is thinking a little bit more and wondering that, COVID is real. COVID is real. I know people who've had COVID. I know people in this group who had it. And so that is not, there's no argument there. But I think things around the COVID is what is it, and things around how we combat the COVID is where there are questions which are not being answered. And in fact, we're at the point where you dare not ask a question in case you are labeled, and you dare not give your thoughts in case you are a dissenter. And that is also quite troubling. So, I mean, everything is up in the air. As Priscilla said, there is serious uncertainty and there is serious confusion, and it's serious non-thinking as well. This is what I think. This is personal.
Well, it's a very clear observation, and I think it paints a picture that I certainly recognise. Priscilla, over the weekend there was this demonstration aimed at stopping the vaccine passports, which would have kind of created a two-tier society. Those with the vaccine passports could go to large crowd gathering events, say like that march. By the way, for those who weren't there, it took up 12 miles of London streets. We don't have the numbers yet. It was almost completely blanked out of the mainstream media. It's as if it didn't happen. That's a living example of the censorship that took place. As a journalist, I had to go and see what was going on there. And nothing surprised me than, I would say, the hundreds of thousands of people I saw in Parliament Square and Trafalgar Square, marching all the way back into West London to Westfield. I was actually at that Westfield situation that people said that there was a fracas and a confrontation. And I have to report to you all that what I was looking for was the attitude of the police. I've got to say that the police were taking selfies with the demonstrators. In fact, I had to test it myself. I took a selfie with the policeman, and they were nothing short of courteous. I'm a black man. Did you notice I'm a black man?
Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, just checking. You see, so all of that has been somewhat differently reported in the media. So what do you think the censorship like this is doing to the people, Priscilla?
I think I'm not sure what the government's intentions are with the censorship thing. If they think that by so doing we're limiting conspiracy theories or conspiracy theorists, but I think what I am seeing it create is creating a community and a society that are, on a daily basis just doubting their government. So what we're seeing here is that, for instance, when we speak of conspiracy theories, I recall going back, I think it was sometime late last year, somewhere around December, seeing a video of a doctor saying that the UK is supposed to be in lockdown for 6 months, and that we're not going to be out of lockdown until March. And I remember dismissing that, thinking, hell no, what is she talking about? And many people said, oh, here we go again, another conspiracy theorist. But was she really a conspiracy theorist, or she had insider information? And a lot of the time, what is becoming apparent now is that a lot of those things that we're saying were conspiracies are manifesting. So so people are no longer, agreeing to that conspiracy theory now. It's like, yeah, but they're always coming, they're happening. So that's what you're saying. So I'm not sure what the government's intentions are, but I know it's not creating confidence in society. It's not creating trust in society. And I think that contract of trust between society and the government is being slowly eroded away. Because when you speak to individuals one-on-one, a lot of people say, well, why can't we hear the other side? Why aren't we talking about other things that we need to do to make us, better, so that we can fight this disease if it comes? Why aren't we permitting? Why isn't the government allowing and permitting a different conversation? So you see, a lot of people are asking these questions, and that's just making them think, is there something the government is trying to hide? Is there something the government are not telling us? And so I don't know what the plan is. But when we go that far, because that march that you speak of, sir, there was another one just a few weeks before that. And it was reported then that there was up to 1 million people. And these marches are happening consistently. How much longer is the mainstream media not going to report on them? How much longer is it going to be hidden? Because, you know, when you hear them, for instance, say, oh, the Black community are vaccine averse, they don't want to take the vaccine. It's not a Black community issue. This is an every community issue. So, you know, when you go to those marches, for instance, or when you see those who are at those marches, they're marching against the vaccine. They're marching against the passport. They're saying no to these things because as far as they are concerned, permitting these things to go on and to happen is going to change their lives completely. And they don't see it as the positive, they see it as the negative. And to continue to pretend that we can't see it, we're not reporting it, nobody's against us, I think the governments are just, it's going to explode at some point, because we're going to get to a point where we're going to have some form of explosion in society, and it's going to be very difficult to hide.
Okay. You see, because actually they walked back their plans on the vaccine passport. And I discovered that, you know, this afternoon. I'd written the script to introduce his program.
I don't know if I can believe them. You see, they've said that they told us they were never going to have a vaccine passport. And then they started discussing it and telling us how wonderful it will be, how we need to have it. So this is the thing. The public are paying attention. They're listening. There are those who will say, oh, you know, I saw a conversation online saying about the march, you know, somebody posted something on Twitter and I saw people saying, I don't know what's wrong with these people. What do they think they're doing? They're so ignorant. Oh, you know, all of that. But that is your view. They don't see it. Those who are out there don't see it in that way. And the public are watching. People are watching. And whether the government likes it, social media is reporting it. Other media platforms are reporting these things as they are happening. So you know, they need to do better.
Okay, let me come to this thing. You mentioned social media. Ben, if you would. There's been a lot of censorship on Facebook. For example, for some of us, every post that you see, every single post that you see is preceded by a signpost to what they're calling the COVID resources, which is basically it's taking you to a government site where you'll be given instructions on what to do. It's so in your face that you get the impression that Facebook and other social platforms are really there to drive a certain narrative home. What has been the impact of the way the social media platforms have reacted on people? Ben?
Well, I think that it's notwithstanding that it's been the main source of interesting information about the situation. But you know, let's also try and put some focus on places like Ghana and Africa, where the situation is totally different. And you know, like the government controls the information, you know, and it's full of lies and misleading information, you know, and so people are not really aware of the dangers that they are in, you know. And I'm saying this from direct experience because I caught the COVID myself. In Ghana.
Where was that? Was that in Ghana or in Ohio or where?
In Ghana.
Right.
In Ghana. When I went to Ghana, I found out that, you know, like Christmas, I did a couple of shows and there was no social distancing. There was no masking. And in fact, anybody who wore a mask looked like an alien. People kept laughing, you know. And the thing is that they were underreporting the issue, and not only that, the treatments were so horrible, you know, and even the staff were so scared of their own shadows because of the exaggerated impact of COVID, you know, that everybody thinks that as soon as you catch it, you're dead, you know, and that kind of thing. So it's been a big mess, big mess, especially in the third world countries. And then when you think about what's happened in India, you get scared for Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because, you know, if it flares up or they get some variant that is a bit wild, then, you know, it's going to devastate the whole community. As it is, the communities have been devastated, but it's not being reported.
I see.
Yeah, because
Candy,
in the rural areas and stuff, you know,
okay.
What happens there that never gets reported.
Okay. Candy, what do you say about the impact of social media on the reporting of COVID?
I think if it wasn't for social media, we would not have known about the seriousness of COVID-19. Social media is what has helped us and made us become aware that there was something, because the way that the censorship was going, we were being given drip information in the news. I am somebody who doesn't want to hear bad news, but I have to keep my news channel on all day, just in case I miss something. I mean, of course, most of it, I dismiss it, but I have to leave the news channel on. I need to know what's going on, because all of the information is coming in social media. The truth, the difference, the lies, everything is on social media. It is not in the news. The news is just full of lies, cover-ups, etc., etc., etc. So we are lucky that way. Now, there was the Spanish flu,
right,
100 years ago.
Right.
That there was no social media then, and it was brought from Europe by the Europeans to Africa, and it killed people, especially in the northern part of Ghana, for example. Thousands of people died. Anywhere where the white people went, that's where the illness followed. Now, people didn't even know what was happening to them. They were just dropping like flies. Now, because thankfully we have social media, the information is out there. People are taking care. Even in Ghana, I mean, Ben was talking about Ghana and how the illness was kind of exaggerated and people are not. It's a class thing. There are some people who think it's the rich people who have the illness because they sit in air-conditioned cars, they congregate in air-conditioned rooms. The illness likes the cold, and therefore it circulates amongst them, and they get it. They say all sorts of things. The market women are without the mask, as he said. The people are walking in the town, no mask, no nothing, and nothing seems to be happening to them. Right. So I don't know what the truth is. I do not know what the truth is. However, the point is, if it wasn't for social media, more people would have died than this, and more people. My concern is normal lay people around know that the borders should have been shut, and every country should have dealt with this illness within their borders. Our borders, UK, was wide open. Everybody could come and go as they pleased. And so the variants were coming from left and right. I don't know whether this was intentional so that we could blame the variant on somebody else, but you see, we are left to think all sorts of thoughts because we're not being fed the truth. And sometimes the truth is that when things are happening, we can all see the foolishness. We can all see the incredulity of certain decisions that are being made by government. But they're still making it. And we have no say. And then they're telling us what we should do, what we should eat, what we should do. I think with social media, Ghanaians, for example, know that you can put precursor in water, boil it and drink it, and it helps. I think with social media, we are learning all sorts of things, how to deal with the illness, how to, notwithstanding the social distancing, etc. But our diets have changed a little bit. The way that what we eat, what we drink, how we are dealing with the illness is changed. And it's all from social media. Because if we didn't have it, we would not be able to communicate with each other and say, drink the neem tree bark etc. So I think social media has been good in this sense regarding COVID-19.
Okay, I'm going to go to. These are beautiful insights, by the way, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to your personal strategies for maintaining your spirit. I mean, I watched a couple of tapes. The impact of COVID on mental health has been awful. Suicides have skyrocketed amongst young people. Most of the social mental health issues like depression and so on have spiked up. Stress, anxiety, all of these things have been causing people a great deal of problems. So I can conclude that the net impact of COVID on our mental state, our state of happiness, has been to make us more fearful, more anxious, and by what you've described with what's going on social media and the mainstream media, much more confused. None of it is a good look for your mental state. So what have been your personal, if I can ask you to share, your personal stratagems for keeping your spirits up in the wake of all of this? You three can't hide from the media. A lot of people can say, look, I don't want to know. Candy, you've got to have this thing on 24/7 virtually. Just to stay abreast so you can do your work. Priscilla, you likewise. Ben, as a person with a huge social profile and who is an opinion leader and opinion former in your communities, you have to know what's going on as well. So what have been your personal strategies for keeping your end up, your spirits buoyed?
Yeah.
This one's a democracy. Whoever wants to go first.
Me first.
Okay, go Ben.
Yeah, I think that the best strategy that has worked for me is to focus on helping others rather than focusing on yourself. First of all, because it takes your attention away from your own travails and problems. And then secondly, I think that it lifts your spirit when you are able to help others, stay brighter and, be more cheerful and maybe even help them to escape, the severity of the COVID, so that is very, very important. And I think that also it helps to give you a sense of spiritual and emotional well-being when you are able to help and focus on other people instead of on yourself. But I think one of the key things that is very, very important here is to say to the adage that you don't wait for the rain to stop. You learn to dance in the rain. So a lot of things, we have had to be very creative in our ways of doing things that are different from the norm. And we're learning that we're able to be effective in communicating by Zoom and video phone and stuff like that. And in fact, sometimes the communications have been far better than before the advent of the COVID, because people you never heard from started talking with you and all that. So it's something that you have to occupy yourself and make yourself useful to yourself and to others.
Okay, Ben, I'm just getting a comment in from one of our viewers who's saying that there's a lot of background noise going on. To be honest, I'm not getting it. So when you're not talking, if you could kindly mute your microphone, that might make it a little bit more comfortable for our audience. Priscilla, what's your strategy for keeping your end up?
Wow. Okay, so as Candy said and as Ben said, I had COVID myself too, March 2020. And as I got better into April, I remember one morning I sat down with my coffee and had the news on, and they told us about 900 more people have died again today due to COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And I was angry, and the fear and everything else. And then something just said to me, hang on a minute. How many people would normally die in the United Kingdom in a day? So I went to the ONS website and I had a check. And when I looked at the numbers there, I figured that about 1,500 or so people would die in a day. normally on any given day. And that was murders, natural death, accidents, you name it, suicides, all of it. We'll get about that. So then when you're saying 900, I thought, okay, it felt like, okay, well, the numbers are not so bad. It's not so bad. And then from that point onward, I took it upon myself to double check things, to look more into things. So what it meant was, if you're telling me 900 people died, did 900 people die from COVID? How many people actually died from COVID? How many died? And then you notice the way the government were reporting COVID deaths. And then you heard just recently when one of our scientists was now telling us that, yes, people have died, but these are people who died in 28 days of a COVID test, not that they had COVID itself, or that, but then their deaths were registered as COVID deaths. Can you believe that? So what you're effectively telling us is that anybody that died within a 28 days of any test that they did, you said they died of COVID. So, and you went on announcing to the whole nation that this number of people have died, and you were not, you didn't give consideration of the impact of that, because 1,500 people would die on any given day and nobody will announce it to anybody. It would just happen. Most of us wouldn't, if we didn't even know. We just got on with our lives. So I started picking up from that point. So I picked up on that. That was the first thing, checking the information, doing my comparisons. You know, what would the usual case scenario be? What do we have now? How bad is it? That's number one. The other thing I did was I started taking care of myself. When I say that, my vitamin D levels were appalling. I knew that. So I stopped playing around with that, and I made sure that, you know, I'm up on my vitamins and all of that, started to eat better and so on. Not that it stopped me from getting bigger, but hey. So I did that. And then I started asking myself, how do I maintain normal in this situation? What is normal now? Normal spending more. We're doing a lot of things online. Whether it's work, just as we are now, you know, we're doing more. We started doing this because of COVID. So normal for me, coping was, okay, if I have this to do today and I'm going to do it online, I'm going to come ready. What do I mean by that? So I would get ready in the morning, for instance, I'll put my face on as though I were going out, and I would get dressed. My girls would laugh at me and say, you know, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going downstairs to get on my system. That was normal. So I'll get on the system, whether I'm moderating an event or I'm, you know, talking as I'm doing now, contributing to something, whatever it was, I came, you know, as I would normally, but just
maintaining standards.
Yes, that was important to me. And as you know, Sir Ben says, helping others, listening to others, and also having conversations with people who were of the same understanding with me, of the same mindset. At the very beginning of COVID, I would speak to a lot of people. When I'm sharing my doubts, when I'm sharing my concerns, it will be, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a conspiracy theorist. You know what? I quit speaking to them. I started speaking to people who were like-minded people, because I learned a lot more from those people. That's not to say I didn't learn from those who considered me a conspiracy theorist. It meant I had to go and look up more what they were telling me also, and compare and contrast. But I spent more time speaking to those who probably understood things, you know, in a different way that I did, who would say, I hear what you're saying, but have you looked at this? I came across this, I heard this, it's looking like this. I preferred that. So that helped me also, because what I found in doing that, like I said, goes back to my very first point, is that it wasn't as bad as it was being made out to be. And as long as in my mind, it wasn't as bad as it was being made out to be, that burden that I had initially, the burden of fear, of, oh my God, what are we going to do? The burden of the negativity of the day, you know, 900 people have died and this is happening and all of that. That burden did not continue to sit with me, because now my brain was thinking differently. I was seeing things differently. I was asking questions. And, you know, it also meant that sometimes listening to others and sharing with them, helping other people, whether they're in the UK here or they're abroad or what have you, it was really very helpful. And I found also that speaking to those abroad, I learned how they were dealing with things, in a different way that they were handling things. Because
Right.
like you said, Sir Ben, I learned that in Nigeria, for instance, they were using, they had treatments for those who had it. I learned a lot about, the issues of those who were getting paid to say, oh, someone had COVID, and it was quite interesting to see all of that. Some were wearing masks, some were not, some cared, some didn't. And like Candy said, yes, it's true. Those who were in the cold and had it affected them a lot more than those who were in the sun.
Can I ask this thing about those who were paid to say somebody had COVID? Can you unpack that a little bit?
I learned that doctors, for instance, in hospitals. So, I mean, in the tropics, malaria is standard, right? So, and the symptoms were similar to that of COVID. So when people come in, some of them, these were first-hand stories, not one. They said so. It was one of those who actually had these experiences, said, look, I was unwell, I went to the hospital. Doctor said, you don't have COVID, but I'm just going to write it here that you have COVID, but I'm not saying you have. You actually don't have it, but you're fine. But we have to do this. So these were some of the conversations that people had. It was quite interesting hearing that that's happening there. And of course, we had seen videos to those effects coming from the US and coming from some people here too. So it was like, oh, so this seems like a standard thing going on. It's not a conspiracy theory after all, if they're also doing it over there and these ones are reporting it over here. There must be some line of truth in this, what's going on. So yeah,
thank you so much. Candy, how do you keep your spirits up? What's your strategy? That's helpful for others.
Well, helpful for others, I just listen to everybody. Wherever people say I listen, I'm there. I'm in so many platforms now. I'm all over the place. And even though I know that I'm all over the place and I'm spreading myself, I think it's better that way. I mean, there are children who get cross with their parents and then sort of tell me about it, and that sort of thing. It's just all over the place. But I tell people that one of the ways that we can deal with this is, I mean, Ben said something about there's the pros and there's the cons, and that's true. Some people are lucky because they're not frontline workers and they can work from home. That is a pro, because this way you are keeping in touch with your family, you know where people are, things are calmer. And so if it is a good, family where there are not very many, everyone has problems, but there's no violence involved, etc., etc., it can be dealt with, But the cons of it is children are in trouble if they irritate their father who's at home, who's lost his job or whose job is up in the air, and he gets cross. There will be violence. There will be all sorts of things. There are men who are killing their wives. There's a high rise of domestic violence. It's all because people are spending more time with people that they don't normally spend time with. People are always out at work and they're doing all sorts of things. So suddenly they're thrown together and you're beginning to learn about each other, and sometimes it's not so good. But then there are, it's not that many, but they're there. But the majority, this is the first time in years that people can spend time with their children and get to know their teenagers and get to know the animal that you're married to and get to, so that's also there. I think people also can find time, even if you're in a house with 7 people, to meditate, to try and get yourself, your thoughts and everything centered. I tell people that all the time. I tell people that you can go on internet courses and you can do all sorts of, you can check on people that you never had time to check on. You can cook. People started making banana bread. I don't know why banana bread. I never baked it because I don't see the point of it. But everyone seemed to be baking banana bread. So there are all sorts of things that you could do to utilize your time so that you do not feel that drudgery which comes with being stuck in one place for a very long time. Of course, is the positives as well of carbon emissions. We have, because there's not much travel, trains were not moving, the buses were not moving as much and all of that. So the air seemed clear. It seemed so clear. In my area, there were foxes and all sorts of strange animals crossing roads and, that sort of thing. They felt freer. There were less people on the road. There were less cars on the road. So, yeah, there are cons and there are pros. And the pros are quite good. I mean, the pros were quite good and the cons were really bad. But this is the situation we're in, and we have to find a way to deal with it.
Right. Can I ask, there's a whole piece. It's been very significant for me personally. I don't know how that resonates with the three of you. This pandemic, the way our governments have dealt with it, and the stresses and anxieties we've been through can't leave you the same person after you've had that experience. Everybody has moved in their way of being. So I want you all to say something about personal development is the best way I can put it. But each one of us has grown somewhat through this pandemic. And I'd like you to share, if you can, how you have grown and what has been the benefit. Because we all know what the negatives are. People have died. We've all been stressed out ridiculously. There's been a huge lunge for our liberties and so on. But what have you grown in terms of personal development as a result of this pandemic? Ben?
Yeah, well, apart from maybe
that's an unusual question.
I've grown 1 inch longer, because I'm at home all the time, and right. I'm having games with my wife all the time. It's just fantastic. Okay. But I think that on a serious note, personal growth has been a big thing. And then, learning to be tolerant, because of close proximity with people, you learn all about all their foibles, and you start to think maybe you're not that different. They also have to tolerate you. And, because otherwise there'll be fights all the time. So learning to, deal with people in a way that you try to understand, sometimes people do strange things and you wonder what the hell is wrong with them. But you begin to think a bit deeper and try to put yourself in their shoes, and then maybe you have a bit of an appreciation of why they behave the way they do. There's always a reason. It might not be apparent. So I think that also personal development in terms of researching yourself, finding yourself, knowing more about yourself. A lot of times we don't even know who we are to a large extent, and we've had the time and the experiences that make us find out a bit more about ourselves, which is great. So, like you said, keep it short and sweet, right?
Absolutely. but your point is well made. Priscilla, personal development. What's been the insight for you?
Oh wow. It's interesting. Last year, so personal development wise, I decided to take up 2 courses of studies. I was just being cheeky, really. I say that because when I started the first one, It was with Oxford, and I started it, and I was like, oh my God, I love this because business-wise, it's just what I needed. Gave me great insight into, the mindset, thinking. It was about leadership and development. And then after that, I took up a second one, this time with Cambridge. And I,
So you went for the bottom then? Yeah.
Sorry?
So you went for the bottom?
Yeah,
No, I'm being
something like
facetious.
that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I did that, and both of them were so eye-opening, and I was just so glad that I did them. And I know that had it not been for COVID, I probably would have been putting it off and saying I will, and I wouldn't get around to it. But because of the season we were in, I did that. I think one of the other things that COVID has taught us more about is value of our friends, our associates, and those that we do things with. Certainly, I feel now, because of the way people popped and disappeared. There were some phone calls I made looking for individuals, and they were no longer there. And I wish I had made although on one occasion I'd made the call a few days before. There was no response. But on this particular day, I made the call and it was too late. I have a couple like that. So now, for instance, as soon as you come to mind, and if I haven't spoken to you in a while, I am sending that message. Yeah, the value. So, just up in my value game, and making sure that I get that done and not allow myself to procrastinate so much. I'll do it tomorrow. No. If you can't make the call, just send a quick text or something. Just say, how are you doing? So there was that. It's also taught me to say, hey, like I've just said, stop procrastinating. Whatever you want to do, get on with it. I've been procrastinating quite a bit. So I'm trying to learn how not to continue down that road, and just sort of get on, because there's a lot that needs to be done. So I think that's the key thing is the value of time, value of individuals, and value of capacity, what I can and can't do.
Superb. Candy, we're coming to the end of our program now. So Candy, what are your issues around personal development that you have learned and that you have benefited from?
I have learned to meditate, and I've learned to have space and time for myself. And I keep in touch with people already. I'm quite a troublesome person when it comes to keeping in touch, sending messages and all of that. So I do that already. But what I feel, I don't think I've developed too well in this COVID, because I have been deeply touched when people die. I'm deeply affected by it. Whether it's death from COVID or just old age or whatever it is, I wonder where they're going, and I wonder what all of this is about. And I become quite melancholy, to the point where I am sad deeply. And I know that I should rise above it, but I can't. It's something which, for me, I've gone full circle. I'm not that sort of person, and things happen to me and I just move on. Things don't bother me that well. I don't care. I mean, somebody can be really nasty to me. I move on. I can see you next tomorrow. I am somebody who says I can have dinner with the devil. I've decided I don't want the devil anymore. I will not have dinner with him. If I see him, I will stab him, etc., etc. I am suffering from this fallout. I am not in depression, but I am sad. I'm really, this is not good. What is happening to us is going to leave deep scars for all of us, even if we think that we're rising above it. And I am admitting it now so that I work on it. And I'm trying to, work on it. I am clawing, I am struggling. it is not good. It is not good at all. Tomorrow, somebody I know will be buried. And in fact, since the person died in April, I have been in a funk. So there you have it. It's not, I'm out there all the time. I am speaking, I am working, I am doing all the things, but I'm not in a good place. And I think COVID has made it so. COVID has suddenly changed me and has made me become aware of our mortality. And I question how even my religion is being tested. Yeah, I am being tested very seriously, and I'm asking myself, if this is evil, that is being worked upon us, where is our God? What is going on? Why is this happening? Why has it allowed? Why have we allowed it to happen? Now, the other thing that bothers me also in my development is the fact that, as Priscilla was saying, people seem to have become zombified to the point where they are agreeing with everything. And I'm asking myself, what is happening to these people? Why? What, are you not aware that this is not right? Can you not just think 10 years back? Would you have thought that such a thing could have happened? And if so, even if it was a bacteria, a virus, whatever, are you not thinking? Why are we not thinking clearly about what is going on? So for me, I'm not developing. I don't think I've developed. I think it is a struggle. It is a massive struggle. But we shall overcome, because Black people are resilient. We have come into this world and we have been targeted, attacked, misunderstood, abused. All of the negative things are happening. Now, in the midst of it all, there's Black people, our lives seem to be mattering. I don't know who to, because nothing has changed. In the middle of it, somebody sat on a Black man's neck and in full view of everybody and thought it was a normal occurrence. Unfortunately, it wasn't. So today in the news, we're talking about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Black people were killed in thousands on the streets.
That would be the Black Wall Street event.
Yeah,
the Black Wall Street. People were burned, people were attacked, bombed, etc. Why? So all of it is coming, it's happening, and it has happened. And is it going to end with this pandemic? Or are they going to find more ways to hurt, maim, blame, abuse? No, I'm not doing well.
Candy, I thank you for your honesty. And I think that you speak for a lot of people. Sadly, we've come to the end of our time today, but I just feel that I ought to share that it takes extreme circumstances for you to see sometimes a situation in which you are. If you're walking down the road and there's a light and gentle drizzle, you won't realize that you're actually getting soaked, and then you might catch pneumonia later. However, if there is a downpour, a thunderstorm, you know very well exactly what your situation is, and then you take evasive action. I will say that in terms of personal development, for me, how our governments, how our scientists, how our doctors, how our societies, how each other, how we have behaved has given me a completely different picture of the situation in which we really are. This didn't happen with the start of COVID. It's always been so, but it was a light and gentle drizzle. So it wasn't clear exactly what was going on. I feel as if this was the final wake-up call, kind of really in the autumn of my life, as to knowing the kind of world I really live in. And to that extent, I'm grateful, because I've snapped out of the dream and I'm beginning to engage with reality. So Ben, Priscilla, Candy, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts and your insights. And of course, I hope you'll come again another time. And also to our people who are watching, I'll get back to the comments later. Please share and comment on whatever comments you find on the timeline. Ben, Priscilla, Candy, thank you so much and good night. Thank you very much indeed.